Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the April 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Hopewell Borough Council to order. Reggie, do the sunshine statement.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by notice mailed to the Hopewell Valley News and the Trenton Times, posted on the bulletin board in Borough Hall, and filed with the Borough Clerk as required by law.
Excellent. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mayor Kennedy,
Here.
Mr. Fuller, Ms. Hook, Mr. Mackey,
Here.
Ms. Steeler, here, Ms. Weaver, here, Ms. Blaney, here.
All right, good evening, everyone, both online. I know this is spring break, so we had a good number of people online and here in person. Before we get to the next piece of our agenda, a couple of housekeeping items. One tough one for me in particular, but I'll say as we start this evening, it's my my duty to announce the upcoming departure of our absolutely fantastic administrator, Doug Walker, effective at the end of July, 4 months from now. We'll be launching a search committee and using our personnel committee, so it turns out it's pretty much everyone at this table, plus the rest of council, to evaluate the best options for us going forward. I cannot thank our friend and colleague for going above and beyond for a year and a half for what was really planned to be a part-time position. We're all so very appreciative and proud of what you're accomplishing here, and on behalf of council and our community, I just want to thank you for your continued fantastic contributions, Doug.
Thank you.
So more to come on that, but on our transition as well as our search plan to replace him is not the quite word that I can use.
Successor.
I do want to point out, I tried to bribe him with cookies and it did not work.
All right, two other housekeeping items. This year we have scheduled, both planning board and council have scheduled mid-month meetings throughout the year because of all the work that we have to do. I'm announcing tonight, and then we'll do the official sunshine, but that our what was scheduled for April 10th Borough Council meeting will be canceled. So our next meeting will be the normal first Thursday slot in May. And the same thing goes for the, was announced at planning board last night, but the April 16th, second April planning board meeting will also be canceled this month to give some of the people doing that work a night off. So not all of them. There will be a subcommittee of planning meeting that night, actually. So, lastly, last month we continued the public hearing on our grease trap ordinance to this evening. We will, when we get to that point, open up as one of our opportunities for speaking and comment and continue the public hearing. But I'm gonna just pre-announce that I'll be asking for a motion at the end of that part of it to carry the ordinance again for continued public hearing and feedback until our May meeting, and that will be not taking a vote on the grease trap ordinance this evening. And that will continue to the May 1st meeting. So with that, our next items on our agenda, item 4, report from Director of Public Works and Water and Sewer. If anyone has any questions for our administrator, now would be the time to do so. Seeing none, I want to move next to the next item on our agenda, item 5. Excited to hear about this one. Councilwoman Weaver will do a brief presentation about a demonstration project that the borough's been working on with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. They provided us with a grant to do a traffic calming project in town as a proof of concept. I'm excited to hear and the timeline. So with that, and Crystal, let me know when you'd like me to. I know everyone in the room can see it on the screen here. It is not yet shared to the excuse me, having a bit of an issue with our owl. So those are online are just looking at me at the moment, and that's not a super pleasant sight, I assure you. So let me try to reboot that. Give me 1 second here, and I'm going to
share.
Oh, really?
Yes, when that turns on, it does make that sound. So if you're online and just looking at me, apologies, our regular camera that pans around will turn back on in a second. I'm also going to share the screen so that people online are now seeing what's up on the screen. And for now, we'll try to make this work. Hopefully, everyone at home can hear and see the screen. I'm going to, while Councilwoman Weaver is doing her presentation, I'm going to see if I can figure out why our owl has yielded to my computer camera. So with that, Councilwoman Weaver, you have the floor. Just let me know when you need slides changed.
Thank you. So I'm really excited about this project. It started about August or September of last year, right, Doug? I can't remember exactly. But we submitted an application to the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission to do a demonstration project here in the borough. And after some back and forth, we decided to do the project on North Greenwood Avenue because it is the only entrance to the borough and not a county road. And it is an area that was not really significantly addressed in the Safe Routes to School grant. Slide, please.
I think you're like getting to command.
So over the past couple of years, as many of you know, we have made some strides towards improving pedestrian and bike safety here in the borough by lowering the speed limit for the entirety of Broad Street to 25 miles an hour and prohibiting right-hand turns during red lights at 2 of our signalized intersections. And as part of the education campaign for lowering the speed limit, the Hopewell Township Police Department handed out the flyers up here on the screen that showed fatality rate of pedestrians when struck by vehicles traveling at various speeds. A person hit by a vehicle traveling at 20 miles an hour has a 90% chance of survival. When struck by a vehicle traveling at 30 miles an hour, a pedestrian has a 60% chance of survival. And when struck by a vehicle traveling at 40 miles an hour, a pedestrian only has a 20% chance of survival. And I just bring this up to point out that this is why speed matters. Next slide, please. So this graph shows the decrease in speeds on East and West Broad Street from 2022 to 2024. This is after the new limit was implemented, the education campaigns concluded, and we increased enforcement. So as you can see, I'm sorry, this is not on here, but prior to lowering the speed limit, the speed limits on West Broad Street were actually higher than the speed limits on East Broad Street. And it's important to note underneath there that is from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, that even a 1 to 2 mile per hour reduction in average speed is estimated to yield substantial fatal and injury crash reductions. So it may not seem like a huge decrease, but it does actually matter. And slide, please. So also, as many of you might have heard, Hopewell Borough was awarded a $1.51 million Safe Routes to School grant last year. The improvements included in that grant are adding sidewalks where they're missing throughout town, including connecting the borough to St. Michael's Farm Preserve and Kings Path. Adding rectangular rapid flashing beacons at key locations near Hopewell Elementary School and along Broad Street. And those are the signs that you hit that flash at the library and in front of, what's it called now?
Hopewell Fair.
Hopewell Fair, thank you. I'm sorry, I just drove past it, I should know that. And then also 2 overhead flashing lights at the Hopewell Elementary School on Princeton Avenue and upgraded crosswalks near Hopewell Elementary School and along Broad Street. Slide. So the demonstration project location was chosen to act as a gateway as repeatedly recommended by the Greater Mercer TMA's speed studies, their school travel plan, and the PBSAC County Roads Report. Slide, thank you. On this map, you can see the 5 entrances to the borough. The county roads are marked in blue, and North Greenwood, again, the only municipal road that entrances and exits the borough, is marked in green. And here we can see the 2 locations on North Greenwood Avenue chosen for the traffic calming treatments. Again, because it is a municipal road, the borough was able to work directly with the DVRPC. And slide, please. This slide is the proposed design for the intersection of North Greenwood and Hart Avenue. This includes painted curb extensions and bollards to narrow the travel lanes to 10.5 feet. Slide. So the benefits of curb extensions include decreasing the width of the roadway as a cue to slow drivers down. And slide. increasing the visibility of pedestrians who are attempting to cross there by putting them further into the street and reducing their crossing distance. And lastly, to tighten the curb radius so that turning vehicles are forced to slow down. And here is the design for a center median gateway at North Greenwood and Washington Avenue. This also narrows travel lanes to 10.5 feet and includes share roads to indicate to both drivers and cyclists to share the road. And the benefits of a gateway median include marking a transition from a country road into a residential neighborhood with lower speeds, decreasing the width of the travel lanes again to 10.5 feet, cueing drivers to slow down. And these also allow for normal turning movements outside the cross streets and driveways. And here we have a timeline for the project. We are where the arrow is about now, and we are hopeful for implementation in mid-May. So we spoke to the DVRPC this morning, and that's where we are at as of today. So of course, it depends on supplies coming in and all of that, but I think that we are pretty well on track at this point. Next slide. And for more information, you can go to the Borough Traffic Calming page on our website. As always, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And I just want to say that I'm super excited for this project, and once it's successful, hopefully implementing similar treatments elsewhere in the borough. And I just want to thank Jen Ferris and Betsy Vistaglio from the DVRPC for all their hard work on this, as well as Doug Walker, Alan Field from Public Works, and Mayor Kennedy for all of their help making this happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Krista. Exciting that we could receive this grant. And I guess the idea, for these temporary installations to see if they work, and starting in June, whether they like them, or they think they're slowing people down, and hopefully it actually does that, proven with speed counts, and
Oh, yeah.
then we can continue to perhaps, if this particular plan works, implement it at those at other places across town.
Yeah.
Through discussions with our partners at the county.
Just so everyone's aware, the DVRPC, Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, will be doing their speed counts next week. And then over the next 2 weeks. So if you see someone out there messing around, it's not actually a demonstration project yet. We're just getting the counts before they install the demonstration project. And we are hoping to, once it is installed, have a QR code at the location so that when you're there, you can go to the webpage and then learn more about the project and also provide feedback if you're so inclined.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And that means that we're 2 for 2 with our grants for traffic safety so far.
So here you go. I guess the maybe $3,000 we got on this one just kind of pales a bit to the
It's a
one that's
little bit.
on its way.
Yeah.
It's an important project.
Yeah, but it was able to go in more quickly.
Exactly,
So
yes.
that's a big plus.
All right. Well, thank you for work on that and the presentation. Perhaps going forward, we like slides and visuals, and as we have better media in the room, we can perhaps spread it out and continue education bits as we go forward. With other
My
topics.
graphs are not as cool as David's, but maybe one day.
So with that, as we've been saying for the past year and a half now, each meeting we would have a fixed time to make sure that we're providing an update on the possible sale of our water system. We were here in this room 2 weeks ago for one of our pre-scheduled regular mid-month meeting, took action to advance a contract with New Jersey American Water. Since then, there's been a lot of work behind the scenes, and the expectation is that that contract, which is both posted on the website as well as a frequently asked questions or fact sheet that's been developed and posted as one of the first of our many planned outreach items, have been posted to the website as well. The contract is en route to the state for approval by the BPU, Board of Public Utilities, I believe, and the Department of Community Affairs, DCA. From a timeline perspective, they will get to review and approve that. If they do, we'll be able to finalize it to be on the ballot in November of 2025 for all voters in Hopewell Borough to decide yes or no on. As we all develop our understanding of what what the document is, what the terms are, and the questions we have, I certainly encourage everyone. There's going to be a lot of additional materials coming out this spring and summer, and we'll do our best to guess what kind of questions people would like answered, but really the best way to have us answer the questions or try to direct people towards the information that they want is to ask them, whether at council meetings, jotting down notes, stopping by at mayor's hours with our administrator and myself, they don't have to be complete questions, but ultimately, we want to make sure that the information that we're able to get out there lines up with what people want to see. And absent that, we'll do our best to put together what we think people want to see. But as you're thinking about things over the coming months, types of outreach you'd like to see, types of events, for which we expect there'll be several information workshops, open house type events that we will put together. But think about what you might like to see, and please reach out so we can try to guide our outreach and information sharing to what
would like to see. David, anything like to add to that?
Nope, thank you. Well done.
Okay, our next item, and again, I'm gonna have to probably, while we're taking public comment, go and reboot our camera again. I'm not entirely sure what is happening tonight. Doug, if you want to just like unplug it and plug it back in, and we'll cross our fingers and do a little kind of rain dance perhaps to keep it functioning. So those online, you're looking right at me from my laptop camera, and I'm truly sorry about that. Normally we'll see more people than that. But with that, our next item on the agenda is our public comment section. So I'm going to open the meeting to the public. Mayor and council will take comments first from members of the public attending in person, then from members of the public via Zoom. Speakers for the first of these two comment sections will be limited to 5 minutes, and we can't take immediate action on any particular comment or item raised. To make a comment or ask a question for Zoom, push the raise hand button on Zoom feature, and we will recognize you when it's your turn to speak.
I heard a cooing of an owl, which means our camera's coming back online. So best time as any for anyone to come to the front, state your name, and address council and the public watching.
Hi, how are you? Ethan Unick, 19 Cook Place. I wanted to make a comment on the grease trap situation. My thinking has sort of evolved over time on this. I understand it's being tabled to the next meeting, but nevertheless, I wanted to insert a comment on it. I guess some of my initial assumptions about the cost of this yearly plumbing inspection, whether it would be sort of a minor inconvenience on restaurants, and I actually made a call to a plumber that I trust, who's very much doesn't have any bias or anything like that. He was just giving sort of input on that service call that would be, say, yearly, could easily creep up to like a $1,500 expense plus, because it's a specialized call. They need equipment to scope the pipes, and they need a pumping truck and that sort of thing. And so it was sort of my hope to advocate for a more moderate, sensible ordinance that was sort of would split the difference in being not onerous to restaurants and their already tight costs. Of course, with the whole water utility, restaurants are getting squeezed, in terms of their expenses right now. And so the ordinance, the modification that I would make to the ordinance that I would humbly advocate for would be to just have restaurants submit their quarterly invoices for their maintenance of their grease traps. It's my understanding that would have prevented the event that actually precipitated this whole conversation. And I think it would be more than sufficient to ensure that the sewer system is being maintained properly and there aren't any gross offenses happening that would cause a major expense to the town. So that's
So Ethan, if I could ask, so you're talking about a scope of work that putting cameras into the laterals and pumping the whole system out to do the inspection?
Yeah, I was speaking, I had a call with a plumber that services the area. He also works in the school system, and he was saying that like that type of an inspection to verify the proper functioning of the grease trap, whether it be once for the lifetime of the restaurant or once yearly, whatever it may be, would be like more of like a two-person job, and it's, you're inspecting the baffles on it, and you're going the outcoming and sort of that whole thing. So he was saying that that could be, eventually, it's not sort of like, I guess he kind of dispelled my assumption that it would be something that under a regular service call, like a plumbing service call, if you could fix a leaky drain, that they could, oh yeah, I'm gonna go and inspect your grease trap, and it would essentially be a trivial extra expense. That was my understanding from the conversation from somebody that clearly knows more than I do about the topic.
Perhaps maybe, and I could suggest even, if we could reach out to you offline and perhaps collaborate a little bit more
Oh,
about
yeah, sure.
the scope of these things, because we
Yeah.
certainly want to make sure council has the best information about what the impact would be. And at the same time, perhaps even might help us develop a scope even, of what should be done, and perhaps it ends up being, if that is the path that, we go down, that it ends up being a defined scope that we might be able to figure out what the tasks are more definitively, and then understand, in taking that step,
Sure.
what they're, so thank you, that's very helpful.
That's helpful, because I mean, just to add, I mean, so
Yeah.
if in fact there is a simpler and less expensive scope of work that accomplish the basic goal, I don't know whether that's true. Obviously, we look at it, I mean, I don't think anybody was anticipating, putting video cameras down the pipes, in fact, this, I mean, really. I think, and the other thing that occurred to me, which is that if you're gonna ask for some sort of an inspection, you do wanna be specific about what it is that's being inspected, right? As opposed to just having it general, and that's not to make it more burdensome, in fact, to make it less so, because everybody knows exactly what's expected. So it's a fairly straightforward thing, for example, of just opening up cleanouts and looking into the laterals, as opposed to something more elaborate, then you probably need to be clear about what that is, right?
Right.
So this is helpful.
Sure.
Giving it
Yeah,
feedback.
absolutely. I think he kind of had a nice retort that I didn't quite consider. He said, well, okay, he said, assuming that you have this thing that's like. He's like, assuming if you're seeking like a near infallible solution to figure out whether waste is leaving a restaurant, which I'm not saying you are. He said, well, then that leaves aside the whole topic of like baby wipes, he said, which is usually like a way worse sort of an issue with the municipal or the sewer system. It's like, these flushable wipes that accumulate and that kind of thing, and it's much more difficult. So he said like, kind of, essentially saying you kind of have to sort of like an 80-20 solution to just say, okay, how can we prevent like most of this happening?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, right, and in fact, you can't, restaurants are only one source of fat oil and grease, there's a lot coming from people's homes.
Sure.
But it's just a matter of where you have the potential for more output in one place, I think, but this is great. And he didn't give you anything, like a little write-up or a quote or any explanation?
He was on vacation when I talked to him.
Oh.
So,
Well, no, it's just, I mean, you can have it in an email or something, it's
Yeah.
not, but it'd be helpful just to, because
yeah.
if we knew exactly what the scope of work was, we'd look at that and go, wow, is that
I
what
think
we typically
we can,
expect or not? But anyway, we can talk about that all.
Sure, happy.
That's really
Yeah.
helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that an offline conversation that maybe directly includes a plumber so that we can answer those addressed questions right in the meeting.
Yeah, I think the scope of work was much greater than, that's the take,
Yeah.
it's much greater than
Yeah,
I
it
initially assumed.
includes a business owners and a plumber, so that we're getting the different.
thank you, Zach.
Well, thank you.
Before we move on, I think Sherry wanted to take this opportunity for David or someone to do a PSA about not dumping grease down the sink. Is that true?
Yeah.
Since she's not here, David, would you mind taking that?
Right, so, well, it just generally, just for people to be aware, I mean, obviously, it's generally not a good idea to be putting grease down your kitchen sink, because you may clog your own traffic, your own pipes, but a good practice is, I mean, if you were making bacon or even something else where you had a fair amount of oil in a pan, to just wipe it out, with a paper towel and toss it into the trash. It doesn't have to be perfect, get the bulk of it, right? Because it's fairly easy with hot water and suds to get a whole lot of oil and grease to go down there. The problem is eventually it finds its way to colder environment and it can go out the pipes, or it ends up going to the plant, which is a problem down at the plant. So I guess the suggestion is where you can, try not to put anything on the sink that you don't have to, and if you have, the other night, just taking a roast out of the oven, and there was a bunch of, schmutz at the bottom of the pan. And you just take wipe it out as opposed to just blasting it with hot water and running it all down. It's a simple thing. But if people are mindful of it and realize that the cumulative load on the system, is a problem. And plus, I know in our house, our lines that went from our drain out and connect to our sanitary line in the street were put in by a homeowner 20 years ago, didn't really do it right, and one day it all plugged up, and we found the entire 20-foot stretch was just plugged with grease. So it just ends up replacing the whole line, but I mean, it's, yeah, there's more that goes down there than you think. Enough said.
Reasons beyond just it hurting the system, it could be a problem in your own house.
Well, it could be a problem in your own house, but then also my understanding from talking to Sky Morehouse about this is that on the treatment plant side, it is also, it adds to the treatment cost of the plant because they have to handle oil and grease in a separate way. And so so not only do you have to worry about the clogs in the system, in your house, and in the system, and then of course, obviously, if you have a clog in a main in the street and things back up, it's not just somebody's household waste that's backing up, it's maybe the whole neighborhood backing up into somebody's basement. So the consequences can be pretty severe when it goes wrong, and it has sometimes. So anyway, all the reason not to put the basement back down. Thank you. Fine.
Thank you, Linford, Chubby's, live on Front Street. I want to continue with the grease trap conversation. So when you say we're gonna have a discussion about this later, is that something we should convene or somebody on the council will convene, just so that we can
Well, I
make
think
sure it
in
happens?
responding to Ethan, he's got information, and I think we said we could reach out to him and set that up. I think that
Okay,
seems like the
Yes,
way to
so
go.
it doesn't fall through the cracks before the next meeting, because I wasn't sure what happened between last meeting and this meeting, so I wasn't sure if there was a discussion, or if I should have called a discussion, I'm just not sure what the process is, so I just want to be clear that before the vote next month, there's some discussion, about what it means. And then I have a question about when you said last time that this had happened before. I'm curious if when it happened before, it was in the same area, like the same Lafayette Street area where the clog happened? Because I talked to our plumber too, and he said it may be that there are many restaurants or businesses going into one pipe, and it might have been the grease trap of one particular restaurant. He said, but everything else before that pipe is also contributing to what's in that pipe that's going out, right? So he said we should make sure that, instead of every restaurant getting this plumbing requirement, if every restaurant is doing the 4 times a year grease trap cleanup, maybe what we do is we do that for a year. We make sure that every restaurant does it. We see if there's any problems in that year. And if not, then maybe in a year from now, we can reassess, do we need a plumber to actually do this work? Because he said the same thing, the plumber that I use. And he said, it's going to be expensive to have someone do it. And he said, the other thing is, if you do it the day after you get the grease trap cleaned, it's of course going to be a clean pipe. He said, so you're going to have to figure out when is this plumbing inspection going to happen with regard to when the grease trap gets cleaned. Right, so that's the other thing to think about. So I know it might seem trivial, but restaurants are really struggling to make a profit these days with the food costs and like keeping the water, like everything. So $1,000 might not seem like a lot, but it's a lot of money. So I just want to make sure that we can do whatever we can to minimize what all of us are gonna have to pay for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other thing is, last month, Sherry talked about the Eagle Scout, Lyndon Horton, who's gonna put up the trees on Columbia Avenue for his Eagle Scout project. And he couldn't be here tonight, but he is raising money to help buy the trees and get all the equipment. So there's a box at Chubby's for donations for him. It costs, he needs $1,200. And I said I would announce today that if anyone wants to contribute to the trees getting planted for this Eagle Scout project, that would be great. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
What's in person?
June Schwank. So I had attended the water meeting that you had over the summer to initiate the WIPA process for selling the water system. So at that time, we had talked about you had mentioned that you were really serious about pursuing alternative options for managing our own water system. And then, David, you had said in August or so that you got the grant, that Hopewell Borough received the New Jersey DEP grant for restoring the number 4 and number 6. So I wanted to know what the status is of that,
Of the grant, so,
of the
we,
project.
well, okay,
Yeah,
so we spoke to the DEP, this would be a little over a month ago. To confirm 2 things, one, that the grant is still available, because that grant was, the funding came from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And as I started to read about the current administration in Washington clawing back grants and contracts that had previously been issued, we got a little nervous. And so we reached out to the DEP to do 2 things. One, just to ask them to confirm, because that money was awarded to them last year. Wanted to make sure that A, the funds were still available, and B, just to reiterate that, we don't know what the outcome is going to be in terms of the referendum, or, where we go, to make sure that that option was still available to us. And they confirmed both. They said the money is in the bank, it's here in New Jersey, and it's secure. And, they knew this, but just, reiterating, keep it warm for us, because we want to make sure that that's available.
for when though, because the grant was, I think, given in August, and then the inauguration of this administration was in January, so.
Right, the money was awarded before that administration took over. So that grant, there was approximately $30 million that was actually given to the state of New Jersey under that grant program, of which ours is a fraction. It's administered actually through the DEP, but the overall award for, I believe it was fiscal 2024, fiscal 23, was about 30 million. There was another award the previous year. So there were 2 sort of tranches of money under this program. This is the ECSTC program, Environmental Emerging Contaminants, Small and Disadvantaged.
We believe it is not being clawed back by the federal government, that it still is viable and exists.
I
and
think
it's not
it's
a
almost
village.
the intentions that I have the question about, because there was 4 months in 2024 where we had the grant, and
Well,
are we serious about pursuing the maintenance of the
Oh.
Well,
water?
may I
So-
interject about the grant though, because the Safer School grant is also federal money. And federal money takes a very long time to get to you, like we only just, when did you hear about Safer School then? This week?
Like
And
literally
we heard that we
this
were
week,
awarded in
yes.
June of last year, so that's the first communication we had from them about anything about the grant, so that was just like, hey, we acknowledge that you will eventually get the grant. And then getting the money itself, this is a reimbursement grant, is gonna take probably another couple of years of implementation, so there is I'm just saying, the issue of federal money, which is why a lot of municipalities are not actually going after it anymore, because it's so onerous. It takes a lot longer than one would hope it does, so it's just not an instantaneous.
A lot of
turnaround.
water systems, municipal water systems, do use grant money to do the repairs that, of the type that we need. And so it is a viable way of making these repairs happen. So I guess that really the other question is, how genuine is it that the council is pursuing the alternative, which is to repair and maintain the water
Well,
system that we have?
okay, let me clarify a couple things. First of all, this grant is specific for treatment of PFAS. It is not for anything else. It can't be used for water mains, it can't be used for a
Right,
reservoir, anything else.
Mhm.
Second, the grant itself, I mean, we were given an email that says, yes, we've awarded the grant. The next stage in that is for the DEP to actually issue a grant agreement. They draft a grant agreement, they're about 65 pages long. We've been waiting for that for months. That was the other thing I asked them, was to give us an update, and they said, we're working on it, we're coming up with a whole framework for these grant agreements, and, we'll be reaching out soon. So that was the answer that I got in addition to the other before. So actually, the ball has been in their court since August on issuing a grant agreement. It's not something that we can do. So the grant agreement comes out, then we get the agreement. At that point, we obviously review it and see if there are any changes or anything else. We execute the agreement. The next stage would be to actually put out a request for proposal for the planning and design phase. It's a 2-phase process. There's a planning that the initial grant agreement would be for planning and design. That money is not money that we would have to refund if for some reason we move forward with that stage and then ultimately decide to sell the system. As
So is the council waiting for the
We are-
referendum to pursue the
we are
repair?
waiting for a grant agreement from the NJDEP. That is the next thing that they have to do. We don't know when they're going to deliver that, okay? It doesn't make sense to proceed with construction. Well, first of all,
We couldn't, yeah.
the planning and design part is likely to take at least a year because of all the permitting involved, mostly because of where well number 6 is located in the park. So if we got the grant agreement today and then sat down and put together a request for proposal for engineering firms to do the planning and design and permitting. So that's the initial stage of it. The second stage is a separate grant agreement for the actual construction, which happens after you get the design completed and the permits in place, because you can't advertise an RFP for the construction unless you actually have a viable project. My estimate, looking at the various regulatory things that would happen with well number 6, because of its proximity to a stream corridor, proximity to wetlands, DNR canal zone, and potentially, we're not sure what the implications would be as far as it being in Green Acres, and there's this whole issue of diversions. You're probably looking at a year from the time that you actually hire an engineering firm to the time that you get the design work done.
Yeah.
Which gives us plenty of time, obviously, to determine whether we're gonna sell the system or not. So again, so that first thing is get the grant agreement, execute the grant agreement, then proceed with that work. If we don't get the grant agreement until, July and the referendum is in the fall, it may not make sense for us to expend funds on putting out an RFP. We haven't made a
So
decision on
it would
that.
take a year from them agreeing to grant the 2.3 million to when they actually give you a grant agreement? You're saying from August when they.
No, I'm
gave you
saying as we
notification to
approach
July?
I'm saying as we approach November, when there's a referendum, and we don't know whether we're gonna have a system or not. Depending on when we get the grant agreement and looking at the timeline, it may make sense to pause until we know the outcome of the referendum. That's a
Yeah.
possibility.
But it's,
It does-
haven't
I
made
mean,
one
I
decision.
guess-
one second, but it's, one, it's a decision that hasn't been made yet.
Right.
2, what we've been doing is trying to get this information from DEP so we can proceed.
Right.
And 3, as part of that, we've sought from them and gotten their commitment that this next phase, should they actually deliver the materials that we could continue with, could be done, I'll say regardless of the system status, that there are initial parts of the grant that
Right.
we could,
That's
if it
correct.
arrived.
Yeah.
Fund, and it would not be a take it or leave it, pause with the considering selling the system, that we could receive funds and work on it should it arrive, if we so chose, and we negotiate with them to preserve that. So if next month they gave us the agreement and we took the next steps to put on an RFP, and which is under the grant, they pay for those steps, we could do that. And we wouldn't have to pay, we worked with them to make sure that we wouldn't have to pay those initial pieces back, and it's it's subject to council approval, but it's our intention when it comes to do it.
Which is actually one of the reasons why they decided to bifurcate it into the planning and design grant agreement and then a second grant agreement, because the way it works is. Once you get to the actual construction phase, if you use federal money for construction of an asset and then you sell that asset to a private entity, you have to return the depreciated value to the government at the time of sale. So it doesn't make sense to do that, particularly if you don't know, if you sold the system and you don't know whether the buyer actually is going to use that asset. So, but the point is, we can safely proceed with the planning and design part without any risk. That money doesn't have to be returned. So they assured us of that in the very beginning. That was part of the thing that they set up. But also, again, I want to underscore something, which is that this grant is very specific to emerging contaminants, specific to PFAS. It's the only grant that we've found that we're eligible for pertaining to capital improvements in the system. We have been looking at grants, both at the federal and state level, and various financing options for quite a while. The USDA, New Jersey Infrastructure Bank. The biggest problem we have with things other than the treatment system is that there are some grants available, for example, through USDA. There are some, there's also financing available through the, what we call the iBank. In some cases that offers principal forgiveness, which is where you basically get a loan, but then at some point they basically forgive the principal. The problem is those programs, every single one we looked at, they have income eligibility requirements that have to do with the median income in your community, and we do not qualify. So for example, you can get a low interest, long-term loan from USDA, at least you could. I don't know how those programs are going to be in the next couple of years. But there's no principal forgiveness, and the same is true, for example, with lead service line replacement. We estimate the total cost of that to be $1.2 million. And that's something we would actually be required to do by July of 2031. iBank offers 100% principal forgiveness for communities that meet the income criteria. We don't, so they don't offer that at all. The best they can do, we think, well, I mean, if we're eligible for it at all, is 50% principal forgiveness on projects, so for example, for water mains and so on. That's not guaranteed, but we think that we are potentially eligible for that. So I just want to make it clear that, the availability of grants for the roughly $7 million worth of capital expenses that we would see in the next 5 years, not having nothing to do with PFAS treatment, is very limited.
Yeah.
And we have been exploring that for 2 years. We've met with the iBank on 3 separate occasions, hoping to get better answers and didn't.
And then one of them with the USDA grant, which is surprisingly to me, to be honest with you, based on our geography to them. In meeting with our compatriots, that's not our counterparts in Rocky Hill.
Right.
And talking through the type of things that they've done.
Right.
The USDA grant is actually one of the things which we have done the paperwork to apply for regardless. Is apparently a community difference between us and them, where the program that was.
They didn't get a grant, they got a loan.
Well,
Sorry, the loan was paid off with the congressional appropriation. They were not eligible for it either. Sorry, I didn't mean to
One
interrupt.
thing
But
about
it-
Rocky Hill that also came up in the public meetings from residents is that a lot of other municipalities that manage their water system have residents who are experts who help with the work in terms of raising money, if not from grants, but we have the potential to raise money in other ways. And so it has been suggested to the council to involve other people who are experts in the community, either engineers, grant writers, fundraisers, and so forth, if the council is serious about pursuing the maintenance of the water system.
But what would be the sources of funding if they're not government?
That's what
sources?
we'd have to explore,
Well,
we
no, but I'm
need,
trying to explain that we've been exploring that. So if you're not talking about state or federal funding, you're talking about private funding?
potentially.
So what I'll continue to say is that, please, those people are in our community,
Right.
bring them to us.
Happy to hear
Happy
about it.
to talk to all of them. We hope that if there are solutions like that out there, we will, like everything else we're exploring, explore them. Again, one of the other things that came out of our conversation with Rocky Hill, there's a lot of discussion about, they have outside professional grant writers who've been quite successful, though not honestly in the water field. The successes they've had have been in different types of grants, frankly, not related to water. But these are all things worth continued exploration, and to Ethan, I'm happy to connect if there's particular people that we haven't spoken with that have these skills. Please, let's discuss it.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else in person. I don't see any hands raised up.
Hi, Marion Legos, Model Avenue. I'd like to express appreciation for including the Hopewell Borough Park cleanup in the Hopewell Borough Recreation Calendar. This year's event is May 3rd from 8 until noon. It's an annual event spearheaded by Sky Morehouse on the first Saturday in May. I attended 2 years ago and really appreciated the community gathering to care for our borough park. Volunteers have done everything from pick up trash, remove weeds around the gazebo, plant native plants, power wash the White Bridge, and clear trails from fallen branches. Last year, the Sourland Conservancy supported this event by providing river birches, a native tree for volunteers to plant. This year, we intend to continue their support. April is National Native Plant Awareness Month. What's the big deal? Why native plants? Native plants are the plants that have been growing in our area for hundreds and hundreds of years. They are adapted to our weather swings. They need no fertilizer, and once established, they require minimal supplemental watering. They feed the birds and insects in our area, allowing a healthier ecosystem. Native plants filter our air and clean our groundwater. They help reduce flooding, increase groundwater recharge, and slow temperature rise. Native plants are not just easier, they are better for the planet and therefore for all of us. On the topic of native plants, the Hopewell Public Library is sponsoring a speaker series on the secrets of butterfly gardening. The presenter is Kiersey, a Hopewell Valley resident and co-founder of the Hopewell Valley Gardens for Wildlife. The event is next Wednesday, April 9th, in the Presbyterian Church from 7 to 8:30. I encourage everyone with any interest in native plants, habitats, and butterflies to come out. Hopewell Borough residents are truly fortunate to be surrounded by the Sourlands, unique in its geology and its ecology. Our community is surrounded by preserved natural spaces, a coordinated effort by residents, government, and community nonprofits over many decades. I am endlessly grateful for our open spaces. However, these open spaces are not old growth forest. Most of our open spaces are previously disturbed areas where native trees, shrubs, and understory plants have been removed at one point in time. Our current open spaces are a mix of native and non-native invasive plants and animals. Many of these invasive plants have entered our ecosystems from residential and commercial landscaping. On March 24th of this year, the New Jersey Senate passed Senate Bill S-1029, the Invasive Species Management Act, with unanimous vote of 39-0. This legislation marks a significant achievement in balancing the concerns of the New Jersey nursery industry with the efforts to protect New Jersey's ecosystems from invasive species, reflecting years of dedication and collaboration amongst a wide range of stakeholders. This bill must go through the House before it goes to the governor to become a law. Anybody who's listening to this, I encourage you to reach out to our elected officials to make the bill a reality. Within the first 13 months of enactment, all propagation of these plants will be prohibited, and the restriction then expands to a 49-month window where inventory must be depleted. The list below is the first set of plants to be banned. These plants are highly invasive and disruptive to our natural areas. You may not see these plants propagating in your yard because of frequent lawn mowing, but animals and birds transport the seeds into natural areas where they begin to spread aggressively. I frequently walk through the natural areas surrounding the borough, and I can find nearly all of these plants within our forests, meadows, and marshes. Included on this list, Norway maple, tree of heaven, mimosa, porcelainberry, barberry, angelica tree, autumn olive, winged burning bush, which looks lovely in the fall, but when it's in the forest, not so much. English ivy, European privet, honeysuckle, Chinese silvergrass, running bamboo, Callery pear, the list goes on and on. I would encourage the council to consider an ordinance that prohibits the new plantings of this invasive species to help protect their natural lands. Other municipalities in New Jersey have passed ordinances to reduce the impact of invasive species in our communities and ecosystems. There are volunteers who work on a regular basis removing these plants from our preserves. However, as long as the seeds persist in the soil and as long as new seeds are grown in the nearby community, their work will never be done. Bringing me to my final comment, I would like to request that the Hopewell Borough pass a resolution acknowledging the beautiful and unique ecosystem we live in. Hopewell Borough is the only municipality surrounded on all sides by the Sourlands, a region whose borders are acknowledged and defined by Mercer County Planning Board. Where I'm going with this, because I think I'm probably going to run out of time here, is we are the only municipality in the Sourlands aside from West Hamilton Township who have not passed a resolution in support of Sourlands being an area of critical state concern.
But thank you, and you're in luck because that is item 14 on our agenda this evening.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's been all the way down there.
No worries.
Hi, I'm Annabelle Davis. I live on Broad Street. I just have a question before I make a request. The sales regarding the water sale, that's like a final sale, right? There's no fixed term. It's like an indefinite period in which.
Yes, it's not a lease or a
Right.
management agreement. It is a sale.
Okay, so my request then, regarding like the information and the more like public outreach that will come before the referendum is. everything I've seen so far has been more about like the 5 years and the short term. Whereas myself and like other young people in town are concerned more about the long term, especially as we consider like climate change. And New Jersey specifically is at risk of like drought, saltwater intrusion, like big changes in the freshwater landscape. And I feel like I don't have a good understanding of what New Jersey American Water's plan is regarding that, if they have an awareness, if there's a plan for like how that's gonna affect management, pricing, different like contamination levels. And so I feel like to make an informed decision, since this is definite and like, once we're the people in charge of the counselor, Hopewell, or our kids, like that's still gonna be affecting us. I would request that that is like an element of the outreach, that we can understand not just how that affects like the next 5 or 10 years, but long-term, as we might see like pretty significant changes to freshwater in the state.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. What's your name? Annabelle Davis.
Anyone else in person? Don't see any online hands raised either. The button is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Seeing none, and this is the first of several other speaking opportunities, of course, I will take a motion to close the first public comment section this evening. Second, Deb, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Next item on our agenda is 4 sets of minutes, 2 regular meetings, 2 executive sessions on March 6th and March 20th. They were in our packets. Happily take a motion on all 4.
I'll second.
Well,
So moved.
There was a sound, but I'm with you. I know it was a motion at first, so we got.
Okay.
Heidi did move, Deb seconded, all in favor of the motion, to ratify all 4. All opposed, thanks so much. All right, the next item, item 9, is a continuation of the public hearing, on and second reading of ordinance 894, which was carried on the March 6, 2025 meeting. As noted before, we will be carrying it, I will ask for a motion in a minute to carry it to our May meeting, but we still do have pieces of the continuing public hearing to attend to technically. So Reggie, if you could read it by title and do a quick explanation.
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, New Jersey, regarding the borough's sanitary sewer system and grease traps specifically, and amending chapter 17 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Hopewell, 1975.
And as we said earlier, this is the motion to modify the part of our code that regulates what restaurants and other users have to do with grease traps. The grease traps is a device that is designed to keep grease out of our sewer system. So we did hear some comments before, it probably should have been at this point, but technically, we'll make sure that this is all considered, obviously, as council considers this. Now is another opportunity for more comments on that as well. That opportunity will continue next month, so seeing none at the moment for coming forward either online or in person, I will take a motion to continue and carry the public hearing. Do I need to open it even though it's been carried?
I would open it.
Okay, I'd like to first reopen, I'm gonna use that word because I like it better. So the meeting to the public for the continued public hearing on ordinance 894. So seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion not to close the public hearing, but to continue it. So we have another opportunity for discussion, more information that council will gather with our restaurant community over the next month to regroup at our May 1st meeting. So that'll take that motion to carry this. All right, Krista, Deb, second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? I think that was already all of us, so. Item 10, this is the second reading of ordinance 895, the public hearing for ambulance fee ordinance. Reggie, if you could?
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell and Mercer County, New Jersey, establishing fees for the provision of emergency medical services and ambulance transport services, and amending chapter 2 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Hopewell, 1975.
Look, I'll do my best. This is an ordinance that will allow us to participate in this system with the other Hopewell Valley municipalities, where Hopewell Township will administratively act as a billing agent for the first aid squads in Hopewell Valley to bill for ambulance calls. Our participation research is that they will do that only when there's insurance, and I think the word is back bill, but if you could not afford it or did not have insurance, the program would not be to seek payment from the user that needs an ambulance, would only be an administrative request to an insurance company. Those funds would be then collected by Hopewell Township on behalf of all of the municipalities and squads, then redistributed back to the fire districts and EMS squads based on the ratios that are developed between the groups, which are based on calls and use. Is that last part close to it? There was a question last time about, well, how do we know we get money back if we're out doing the calls?
All the funds are gonna be collected and used to offset what we pay into the shared services. So that's how, it's not gonna physically come back to the borough, but it's gonna be a paper entry back to the borough to hopefully reduce what we need to pay for services in the future.
And some of the things that we pay into, like, for example, our fire stations have several paid career firefighters. They're actually employees of the township, and we kind of pay into that for them to be here. This would first be offset that before it came back as a fund.
Yeah, and it's also, as you mentioned, it's all soft billing. They make one request to the insurance. If they don't get it, they don't go after the person that needed the service.
Thank you. I'll next open the meeting to the public for the public hearing on this ordinance.
Hi, Marion Labus again. Doug, you mentioned it's soft billing, so if they bill the insurance. The thing is, a lot of Americans these days, and probably many Hopewell Valley residents, have high deductible plans. Which basically, as a family, until you reach somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000, you're paying everything out of pocket. So I have insurance and you could bill me, but that $500 bill is basically going to expect me to pay $500, my insurance. So that's not.
They're only gonna collect, my
Okay.
understanding is they're only gonna collect what the insurance pays. So they
Okay.
make you know how you get your form, and
Yeah.
it says this was the charge and you're meeting your deductible, so we're paying zero?
Yeah,
Okay, that's
Okay.
how it's gonna work.
thank you.
Anyone else with a comment or question on ordinance 895? Seeing none in person and no hands raised on the online, I'll take a motion to close the meeting to the public for this particular ordinance. Second, David, second, all in favor? Aye. On this, I will seek
I'm gonna do a roll call.
Wait, I just had a really quick comment. There were just a few very minor revisions that we had sent to you from the township, so I just wanted to make sure if there's a motion to adopt, that it's a motion to adopt as amended.
All right, so I was about to ask for a motion to adopt, so is that sufficient information for someone to make a motion, or do you want to go over the?
I can very, very briefly.
I'll make a motion to adopt as amended.
Yeah, and they're very brief. They're there are some changes just to language, from medications to operational costs, just to make things a little clearer. And we added borough in addition to Hopewell Township, because the borough does a lot of the transporting under the shared service fee, because it has its own fire and rescue, I believe. So there were just a few additions, very minor additions in the ordinance to make those clarifications. That was really it.
None of which are substantive enough to require us to.
Not substantive. They are
Much.
minor, and
All right.
you do not have to read.
Leave it at first, a motion there. Do I have a second? All right, Deb, thank you so much. We do a roll call on this one.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Steeler,
Yes.
Ms. Weaver,
Yes,
Mr. Lennox.
Yes.
I've got two more ordinances. These are both first readings, so the public hearing on both of these would be at our May meeting, but first, item 11. Pardon me, ordinance 896, first reading. Reggie, if you could read by title.
Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, calendar year 2025, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriations limits and to establish a cap bank, NJSA 40A:4-45.14.
Thank you. I know this is one that we do every year. It is a housekeeping one with our budget process, but Doug, if you give us if there's anything more to say beyond that, now's your chance.
Okay, so, without a resolution, we can go up to 2.5 as our cap. 2.5 on the items that are inside the cap of the budget. We have inside cap, outside cap. So on the inside cap, we can go up 2.5 without a resolution from council. If we wanted to go up to 3.5, we would need a resolution or like this, an ordinance from council to go to the 3.5. So what we're doing is we're only going up to 2.5. But what this allows us to do is that 1% between the 2.5 and the 3.5, we can bank that for a rainy day. Should something happen in the borough that we have to exceed, the 2.5, we can bank it. It stays on your rolls for 3 years. If you don't use it in the 3 years, that 1% disappears. So that's why it's an annual thing that we want to take advantage of. Doesn't cost the taxpayers anything, doesn't increase our budget. It's just like a safety net. Should something happen that we needed to exceed our cap.
Thank you, Doug. I'll take a motion to introduce ordinance 896. Second? Second. David? All in, we want to do roll call for? Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Thank you so much. The public hearing on this ordinance will be at our next meeting, May 1st, 2025. Next item 12, ordinance 897, first reading of a modification to our shade tree committee. Reggie, if you could read by title.
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, New Jersey, regarding the Advisory Shade Tree Commission and amending Chapter 2 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Hopewell, 1975.
This one, I'll start. The explanation came from Shade Tree. That group's been doing a lot of work, and as it turns out, our ordinance only really allowed two people to be appointed on it. We've had a lot more people doing the work on it. So this modernizes the committee slightly, allows to make a few more appointments that are consistent with the people who have actually been there doing the work, and allow them to continue doing what they're doing more officially, since technically only 2.5 of them perhaps were actually able to be appointed fully. So with that.
Also allow our tree expert who now lives outside of the borough to maintain.
That's actually a good point. So we some members who are out of borough class.
Recently, yeah.
With that, I will take a motion to introduce ordinance 897.
I'll introduce.
Second?
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Next, we've got our consent agenda. I'll note for 52, that's something we did a while ago, but they did an actual ordinance for it. It's for Steve Webb, who is our OEM representative. I'm happy and thankful to both our staff in helping make recommendations, and our personnel committee for looking and reviewing them as well. But we're, as we later on, we'll be introducing our budget, and very proud of the work of our professionals and having a very reasonable budget, but also very proud that we're able to provide increases for our staff this year that do exceed the cost of living increases that we're seeing. We're very much proud of the work that our team does, and our duties to make sure that they're paid appropriately. So appreciate everyone's work on this. If anyone has any other pieces to pull out or questions separately, otherwise I'd happily take a motion for the. All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Next one, item 14, resolution 2025-57. Actually, as we had a speaker earlier, we've been requested to show our support for the designation of the Sourlands area as part of the state plan. I distributed or had distributed with kind of a tweaked language. There's I think a unanimous excitement amongst council, and our community that, the Sarahlands region is, absolutely, needs to be protected, that all the resources we can help bring to bear, and support are in all of our benefit. There's, as a fully developed town, though, there are probably, when it ultimately is implemented well in the future, some caveats that we may want to think about, that communities that, for example, are included in the Pinelands area or the Highlands area, may have a little bit more nuance when you are built out. We obviously are not a old growth forest. We are a fully developed borough, which is relatively unique, not entirely unique in the area. So I'm happy to take a motion, frankly, with either version, either the one as proposed by the Sarahlands Conservancy or the tweaked one.
I would definitely advocate for the one, I would make a motion for the one that has been proposed by the Sauerland Conservancy. I understand the difference between the developed and the undeveloped areas, but since the area of critical state concern would be affecting the undeveloped areas, it wouldn't be, I wouldn't be worried about it the way that it would affect our already developed areas. And I feel like that's the better resolution.
So could you explain how it is that area only affects undeveloped land? Because I'm not finding that in my research. Where does that come
Okay.
from?
I mean, I have from my conversations with the Sauerland Conservancy and with, hopefully, are any of them on Zoom? I'm not sure. And also with, another environmental advocate. And I did look, Lambertville did pass this, and I find it the modified one says that we fully support the designation of the Sauerland region outside our borders, and that just seems strange to me that we would be making a resolution to support something outside our borders.
I would agree with the tweaked version because I think including us in that resolution as a built out town already might bring in unneeded oversight to a town that's already built out. So I think it makes sense to have the way we adjusted it.
So I guess there's a motion for the original version on the floor. Maybe is there a second? Is there an alternate motion?
Yeah, I'll motion for the tweaked one.
Yeah, the modified version.
Yeah.
And I'll second that motion for the modified version.
Okay.
I think that, so there are a number of sort of dilemmas here. I mean, on one hand, so obviously everybody wants to support the preservation of the Sauerlands, unique ecology, long list of things that obviously have been explained and advocated for by the Conservancy, and I agree with all of that. The question here is, in my mind, is, I mean, designation of it as an area of critical state concern, the objectives of that are all stated pretty clearly in the information that's provided to us. It provides potentially funding, it provides all potentially protective mechanisms. What is an unknown is, and we're not anywhere close to that, is what the regulatory framework would ultimately be under that designation at some time in the future, and that's what we don't know. And I am by no means an expert on this, but I did a little work today looking at the regulations that apply, for example, in the New Jersey Highlands, which is another critical area of state concern, and also in the New Jersey Pinelands. Those regulations do not apply only to undeveloped land. There are all sorts of exemptions for routine things that people would do on developed properties. Ryan, I'm sure you know all about this. But it's not as if they only apply to, and some of them, it has to do with the amount of square footage of disturbance or the amount of impervious cover, similar to the triggers for our stormwater ordinances, which and the state stormwater regulations, because that's, I think, the main driver, for example, in the Highlands. In the Pinelands, it's more complex than that. So the question is, we endorse this, but and the other thing is, I mean, what defines the sourlands is an interesting thing. I've been trying to poke around and find an actual geographic boundary. If you look at these other areas that are designated as areas of critical state concern, they usually have specific, either they're municipalities that are included or they're actually firm lines. When I look at the information that was provided to us, it looks like what's been delineated as the sourlands, I think by the council, is pretty much based on topography. I mean, the description of it is it's largely of the sourlands, it's largely a function of the geology of the soils, hence the term sourlands, right, which is mostly derived from the diabase rock that underlies those ridges. That does not underlie any part of Hopewell Borough. So if you, I mean, I'm not saying that we should be so rigid that we say it's purely based on the geologic context, but that is the main thing. I mean, what makes the sourland soils sour is the deficiency of nutrients that are ordinarily associated with other types of rocks that are deficient in that diabase, things like potassium, hence the name. Obviously, there's a whole other dimension of ecological services and history and everything else that we value. It's not strictly based on the geology. I found it interesting when I was looking at that map that was on the flyer that we were given, that there actually is a section on Crusher Road that is actually up there on the diabase that wasn't included in it. And yet our municipal boundary seems to be, we're sort of on the flanks of it. So one could make the argument that it's not clear to me that Hopewell is in fact in the sourlands, but it all depends on how you define it. And since that, I don't see a clear objective determination of what that boundary is. I don't know where that boundary would end up down the road when it is going to be subject to land use regulations. I know this is very long-winded, forgive me. The issue comes down to this. What would the implications potentially be for land use regulation in the borough?
Exactly.
And I don't know that that's going to lead to something dreadful, but it's a big unknown. And I also don't know whether this endorsement in itself truly has any teeth that would lead to that. So it may be that it doesn't. I'm just trying to articulate, you know, what's been bouncing around in my brain all week, so I have to get it out. But the other side of that is, if it does have implications for land use in the borough, then those are essentially permanent and ongoing. And I wish I understood more about the process. In other words, when this happens, and let's say, and this is referring to a list of areas that were proposed for designation in the draft plan that was, I think, from December of 2024. And so we're endorsing that and saying, yes, please do that, keep that in the draft. I wish, you know, somebody had come here and given us a little presentation on what the implications of that were. So maybe I'm over analyzing, but that's kind of why. And I guess so. One last thing, you know, does our change in this language sort of diminish our endorsement and our enthusiasm for this overall concept? I mean, the basic concept is you have this thing that extends across multiple municipal boundaries, and you need to look at it holistically, and that's what the objective of this is. I mean, we're cheerleaders for that. I'm not entirely comfortable with the determination that the borough itself is actually in the sourlands, and if so, should be subject to land regulation under that. So that's it. I'll stop talking. Sorry.
So what I'm hearing is universal support for the special region being recognized for receiving protections and support from the state. But I guess I'm going to draft it, so I'll just say maybe a footnote that when the legislation for this is put together, that you know, perhaps this is a reminder for the legislature to maybe check with us to make sure that the same type of land use regulations that might fit Hillsborough or undeveloped lands or parts of the Hopewell Township that have 1400 zoning don't necessarily automatically just apply here without us being part of it. But ultimately, a gesture of our universal support of the special region and essentially protections and resources.
So the message is, yes, we endorse it, but you're gonna have to check with us.
Did you get a chance to speak to the sourlands, Ryan, or?
I did, yeah, we've had a lot of on this
On this
part of it.
topic.
No, just our planner and the county's planners, and lots of folks, but, no, the advocates for it, I did not.
Yeah, I will, obviously, I mean, I would have rather had the original one. I would support it, as, with my fellow council members, but I do just kind of want to say, I think that when an organization like the Sourlands that works so closely with our borough in something like, Marion was just saying earlier, how they're helping with the cleanup, that when they reach out to us, that we give them the courtesy of a direct conversation about the issue that they, I think that that's, it's probably a 15-minute phone call, but I just think that is a good idea.
Well, I would also say that normally when somebody is coming to us for an endorsement, they usually make a presentation on the basis of it and making that request. I mean, that would be, to me, the normal way that would happen, and then be available to answer questions.
I think the other piece of it is that we've now spent, and while I was reluctant to, have our planner be more involved beyond the initial discussion, is that this is something that's so far in the future and vague, that the goal here is to show our support. And I believe this has not done that.
Yeah.
So I believe we have a motion and a second. Yep.
It's already done.
Do it, yes, so we can move on that. We have a roll call, or do we just?
No.
Thank you. Next one, item 15, there are 2025 municipal budget. Doug, I want to thank you and Diane and everyone involved in this and putting this together. This is a very unique thing, not that governments have budgets, everyone does, but we always talk about ordinances having 2 votes and resolutions having 1. This is the one thing we do where there is a resolution that will get 2 votes. So we will introduce it this evening, and then at our May meeting, have a public hearing with more information on it and a final vote, including with our CFO here to answer questions, do the presentation. Doug, the keys that my takeaways are a continuing decrease in our requests for more funds from our community. 2 years ago, we were a 4.5 cent increase. Last year, 3.5 cent. This year, 2.5 cent tax increase. And I'm really proud of what Doug and his team were able to do with that. We will be having $150,000 of kind of pay-go capital for this budget year that we didn't have last year, that allows us to do projects without borrowing more money for it. We also largely through Doug's work and with our CFO adjusted our banking relationships to increase the amount of interest we receive on the funds we have, to the tune of about $250,000, which will increase our we call a nest egg or surplus, essentially, to a really I'll say more than healthy number, frankly. Doug, any other highlights you'd like to bring up? And really, thank you.
No, that's fine. We're gonna have more of a presentation when we do the actual public hearing.
With that, I'll take a motion to introduce.
Move.
Have a second?
Oh, no. I'll second.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler? Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Next, I'll take a motion to approve the claims repayment. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. I think Heidi wants.
No, Heidi wants you. Okay, good, yeah.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
I'm just gonna note, 2 proclamations that we have this evening. The 5th anniversary of the Hopewell Valley Mobile Food Pantry is coming up the 13th. And then one honoring, Rory and Aaron Phillipson from the Blue Bottle Cafe. April 19th, will be their last serving at the Blue Bottle, and we are very, appreciative of more than almost 20.
Some of us have tears.
Almost 20 years of being a part of this community. So on a small gesture of our thanks, but on behalf of council and our government to honor them with April 19th being Blue Bottle Day here at Hopewell Borough.
And when you think about, I mean, literally the day they opened,
All right.
they were this phenomenon. I mean, I'm like, where are all those cars? Is somebody having a party? No.
No.
No. It's extraordinary and for good reason.
Yeah, it's extraordinary service. People. We're losing a real gem.
Yeah.
I mean, they are going on,
They're
they're
moving on
retiring.
to their next.
They're moving on,
Yeah,
yes, so
but I
it
mean,
is good for them, it's good for them.
Work-life balance. right?
Yes,
That's right.
work-life balance.
Well,
So I'm happy for them.
And when you hear, Rory's excitement over teaching and how.
Yes.
It's,
And having more time with their
and
kids.
having more time with kids, so, yeah.
I'll just note as we transition to our next, our mayor council liaison reports that, members of our community, there are so many awesome things happening here. Businesses opening, things, ending unfortunately, but after long, amazing tenures. If there are people or things that are deserving of special recognition, please continue to let us know. We love to make sure that everyone gets the due, whether it's a Eagle Scout project, or an awesome business. Please, let us know and we can help figure out how we can support and recognize these great things that are happening in our community, like Rory and Aaron. So with that, we'll move on to our council liaison reports. We'll go this side. How do you want to start? We'll go start with you.
So we'll start with the green team. The Hopewell Borough arm of the green team will be organizing our next community zero waste potluck. That will be Sunday, June 1st from 5 to 7 at the train station. And all are welcome. That will be shared out in the borough email as well as via printed flyers and social media. And we are working as the Borough Green Team on a sustainability direct mail piece to go out to residents sometime in May, and this is paid for with our Sustainable Jersey grant. I was also going to mention the pollinator garden workshops, but Marion did a wonderful job of that. So there is a second one happening April 26th at the Mercer County Library. And that is it right now for the green team. I don't see anybody else here from downtown Hopewell, who, they weren't able to come to public comment, but Downtown Hopewell, which is an organization of all the local businesses, has organized an event on Saturday, May 10th from 12 to 4 with the Sauerland Conservancy. It's a mocktail crawl, which is a way of really getting people into all the participating businesses and supporting the Conservancy. So, thank you. Oh, thank you.
I switched cameras and I'm holding the flyer up
Thank
to the
you.
camera, those
Thank
online
you.
or
So you
watching
just
the
go to,
recording.
yes, so just go to downtownhopewell.com.
And I think if you're really fancy and watching on YouTube, there is a QR code
Look at
here
that.
that will actually take you there.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, Hank. Deb, you want to go next?
Sure, so there's a lot happening in town, from a recreation and event perspective. We've got, the Easter egg hunt, being put on, April 19th. We've got a tree being planted for Arbor Day, in conjunction with the elementary school on April 21st. May 3rd, 4th weekend is a huge one in town. We've got, pancake breakfast, handmade Hopewell, opening day for the farmers market and the park cleanup day. We're gonna be honoring one of our residents, during the cleanup, ceremony, but I think we'll talk about that at the May meeting, we said. Suzanne Holcraft is retiring, so, a group in town came together to, want to pay tribute to her career, and her contributions to the community. So, Sky Morehouse was kind enough to buy a tree. We're gonna plant a tree in the park and put a plaque and all kinds of good stuff like that. Library board met on Monday, and we just have a lot of good stuff going on. Redoing all the personnel manuals, and everybody's taking their required library, state New Jersey library classes that they have to do to stay up to date. And that's about it. Personnel we'll probably talk about later. Yeah, all good. Thank you.
Christy, you want to go next?
Sure, so mostly we've been working on the CVRPC demo project that I spoke about earlier today.
We also, was it only last week that we met with the county, representatives from the county, planning and engineering teams. I
For
like
Broad
to talk
Street.
to the time, I can't believe it was only last week, right?
Yeah, for Broad Street.
Yeah.
So to discuss, putting a similar treatment as we're doing the demo project onto Broad Street, and they were, I would say, pretty amenable to it. The main issue that's gonna take our time for us is that we are responsible for not only funding it, but the design of it. So we need to do a traffic study to make sure that we are making the best informed decisions for the intersection there, and then also coming up with the funding for it. But I think it's gonna be an exciting project once we can move it along. And we also are going to be moving ahead with the field trip with Hopewell Elementary School to Borough Hall to have the kids come here and learn about what we do here and hopefully take turns sitting on the dais and banging the gavel. As I mentioned, my kids, whenever we have to come here to run an errand, they demand to come down here and sit here and bang the gavel. So I think it's gonna be a fun trip for everyone.
Thank you. Dave, go ahead. Not too much to report. I mean, the biggest thing this month was just finalizing the fact sheet on the contract to sell for the water system and getting that live. And thanks to everybody on the team for helping with that. You know, we were able to post that the day after our last council meeting, so that was good.
Yeah.
And in that vein, still working on some additional analysis, some updated modeling of, you know, financial projections on the side of, you know, if we keep the system, what would we have to do, what the rate of impacts would be, and we have a better fix on that. So I have to circle back with Brian Morris, our financial advisor on that, and with the water team, and to, you know, to dust that off and put that together into a presentation for the public. And simultaneously looking at our sewer rate structure, because there may be an opportunity there to lower costs for lower volume users. For our water billing structure, you know, we have a flat rate for the first 2,000 gallons of water, but for sewer, it's the first 10,000 gallons. So that means if you're using 10,000 gallons versus 5 or 2,000, you're paying the same fixed fee. So there's some opportunities there, I think, to perhaps look at that rate structure. So Reggie's given the data for 2024, so we can look through and look at usage data and see what that works. So we'll model in there. And speaking of sewers, we just got some very interesting information from David Smith at the Stony Brook Sewerage Authority, which so, you know, an ongoing issue with sewer collection systems, it's infiltration and inflow, I&I, which is basically rainwater that's getting into the sewer system that shouldn't, and then obviously adding to the volume of flow that has to be treated at the plant. Because we basically pay for how many gallons are treated. So, and all sewer systems, you know, it's sort of the opposite of our leakage problem with the water distribution system. This is water getting in as opposed to water getting out. It's always something. And so the Stony Brook plant takes the flow, obviously, from our plant from Hopewell. It also takes the flow from Princeton Farms and Hopewell Hunt. And they have their own I&I problems. But anyway, so it's our responsibility to look at our collection system and find places where water's getting in. Sometimes little things are, you know, people, they break off their clean out covers, you know, when they're mowing the lawn, little openings like that. But the more involved aspect of that is putting cameras into mains and actually looking for places where water's coming in and so on, which we do periodically, but we need to look at this again. So that, in my long-winded preamble, what I wanted to mention was, so during the drought last year, which was protracted and one of the most severe droughts we've had in many years, the flow numbers at the sewage plant dropped dramatically below anything that we've seen in the last couple of decades. So what that's telling you, the difference between that and the normal flow during periods of rain, is just how much the I&I is. So based on those numbers, and the sewage authority put together a really nice letter with really good information that kind of explains this exactly. There's an opportunity potentially to the total plant capacity for our Hopewell plant is 300,000 gallons a day. It's potentially within reach to get back 40 or 50,000 gallons a day of capacity if we can mitigate the I&I. And it's something that it pays for itself essentially because your fees to the plant are based on flow. So Doug has already spoken with the borough engineer, and we're gonna get together with Dave Meisler and work out a plan to, I mean, it's been an ongoing issue that we've worked on, but I think we wanna knuckle down a little harder this year. We've been talking about it for a while. There's a real opportunity there. So, that's it. That's for all the things with pipes.
Thank you, David, and everyone for, this has been a big month of work and effort for everyone, on council and all our volunteers in town, so very appreciative, particularly that's where like, March, where we met so many times, so again, thank you everyone, for all your hard work. As a reminder, again, we'll now officially update the website, and do the sunshine, but again, we're not gonna meet next Thursday on April 10th. Our next meeting will be May 1st. Planning board is also not meeting on the 16th. Their second slot that was announced, last night, at the planning board meeting. Though, a subcommittee of the planning board will be meeting that night, not, privately, though, via Zoom to work on the affordable housing plan for the borough. If you've been following this, the end of last year, we received our figures from the state. In January, we determined as a governing body with our planners and attorneys that the 39 units that the state assigned us we felt appropriate, and we entered that into the state system by filing actually a lawsuit to confirm that. Happy to report that that was not challenged. So at the moment, our number is, as we determined, at 39 units for the next 10-year period. And our next piece of that is to put together a plan of how we feel that we're going to accommodate that and have those units of affordable housing in town. So the subcommittee of the planning board is working on that with the planner for council and the public's benefit. It's possible that we might have a preview or presentation at our May meeting, but then likely planning board would be looking at it in full at their May meeting, which this is an odd month in come May where council meets before planning. The first council meeting is the Thursday, which is the first, so the planning board meeting is next month. And then in June, likely council will get the final version of the plan and enact it, so that can be done before the end of June.
Oh, the end of June is the deadline?
Yes.
Okay, well.
Yeah. Next office hours, at least the Saturday version, are on the Saturday, the 12th, so not this weekend, but the weekend after, the 12th at 9 a.m. And we did the water update before, mentioned the April 13th event. I want to thank, we had a lot of residents after last month, and we talked about some of our problem properties, kind of log issues with some of our professionals. I just want to thank everyone that does help paper our files for when we can take action on some of these problem properties. You this past weekend got several phone calls and texts from the county that there was lightning in the area. That means that you've signed up for our OEM service. If you did not get texts and calls that there was lightning in the area, that means that you should go to our website and sign up for emergency alerts from the Hopewell Valley Office of Emergency Management. We have an email system that many of you are on. You should sign up for that too. But that's how we'll send out things like our agendas for meetings. The emergency alert would be something that you want, hopefully not get.
Maybe just sign up for the text, as I mentioned the last time we brought this up, because you will get like multiple phone calls being like, it's windy outside.
You will get, again, if you're signed up, you will know, because all of your phones will have rung. June 7th will be the second annual First Responder Hopewell Valley Mayors Awards. The three mayors are gonna have a ceremony again, recognizing our phenomenal first responders in Hopewell Valley. April 28th at 5:30, Hopewell, the school district has invited us as a governing body to the elementary school, which is not so far for us to go, and not unusual for many of us to be there almost every day. But to talk about to see the facilities as part of their outreach about upcoming capital repairs. I'll just ask if you plan on going, to let me and or Reggie know if more than 3 of us plan to go, we'll need to do a sunshine
What day of the
notice.
week is that?
Monday, the 28th?
I believe it's
April 28th?
Monday.
It's a Monday.
Yeah, it's followed by a school board meeting that they've been doing. Next, just on behalf of Anthony, who's traveling this month. But if you're interested in helping him or myself or council of churches or library on an event program for educating and assisting and supporting our immigrant communities, please contact Councilman Fuller, who's working on that. I'll note that our library is reached out to for a new possible speaker series on things about Hopewell. And I don't mean history, but things about how Hopewell works. And I'll just ask each of you if you have thoughts on that. We can collaborate and try to help them fill up their one of their many excellent speaker series. And again, as Councilwoman Weaver mentioned, we're talking to the school district about an educational event with the first graders, potentially coming to hear. And when we get that date, we'll let everyone know if anyone's interested in coming as it comes together and being part of that.
First graders ask a lot of questions, don't they?
They sure do.
And I'm sure
That's wonderful.
They're never satisfied with the answers.
Well,
Right, well, you know, it's a good thing to.
we will have copies of our municipal audits, our budgets for them to go through line by line. Absolutely adore.
Oh, you see their heads hit the.
And again, one last time, Doug, for you to report, just I want to thank you for everything you've done this month in particular, between getting our budget together, these last couple of sprints with our water utility. It's been a very, very busy month, and just want to thank you and your team for everything that you're doing. Feel
Okay,
free to.
as you mentioned, we've got our budget introduced, so that's great. We also were able to put together with Lisa and Diane, put together the procedures for the financial requirements for the committee, the Shade Tree Committee's tree donation program. We got that all ironed out, so that's great. Just wanted to mention with the water system, just through March, we've had $38,413 worth of water main repairs. Just for the first quarter of the year, so it's a growing problem. Last year, I think we were about 39 or 40,000 for the entire year. So it's been a rough 3 months. The railroad station, for the submission to the BPU and everything, I just wanted to thank Lisa and everybody for all the work, pulling everything together and getting that submission in. So that was a job well done. The railroad station, we have a meeting next on the 11th, which I believe is Friday, to kick that off, get some scheduling done for that, to get back, finishing up the project. You know, we got the other 2 grants, so we're gonna put that to work. The railroad station will need to close during this work, so once we have a schedule.
You'll need to open
When
the
do we
block party.
anticipate that, like,
I'm sorry?
when do we anticipate the closing happening again?
I'll know after the 11th.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause it's,
and I was just saying, keep the block party uses it, so keep it in mind.
okay,
She's serious.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's desperate.
She's serious.
Yeah, very serious.
You use the parking facilities, right?
No, we use the building,
Oh, you use the building also?
yeah,
Okay.
to stage the food.
Yeah,
Um,
if there's not food and there's all that drink, we'll be in trouble.
That's a problem. So, the Public Works Facility Project, we continue to move that forward. There's been some complications. We do have the grading down now. And, we should have the pricing available. I'm hoping in the next week or 2, we can meet with the building committee. We've staked out where the new building is, that's not new building, remodeled building is gonna be, so we can see the limits of that. We're concerned about the trees that are there. One of the things we're doing is, we're gonna have Bartlett come in and assess the trees. I mean, they've been there a while. We want to see what the average life expectancy is of the trees, because it's causing us some problems with drainage. We have to modify the drainage plan. So we have a plan B. If the trees are, have another 20 years to go or 15 years that will leave the trees and go with Plan B for the drainage. So we do have that. But the building is gonna be, we're not building a Taj Mahal, we're just making it functional. Keep the rain off the employees when they're sitting working, the roofs leak, and so it's, but it's gonna be a welcome addition. For the people that work in our public works.
Yeah.
Hart Avenue, we're hoping to get that underway. The contractors submitted all their submissions. They've all been approved by engineering. And so on or about April 28th, once we get a firm schedule, when they can break free and mobilize, we'll get a message out. Eaton Place, Eggy and North Landing, we're gonna get those paved. We're just finalizing that. We got a grant for 272, which basically covers the entire project, 100%. We'll have some engineering and inspection costs.
Right.
One of the things that happened last year, the gas company ran a line down North Landing.
Right.
Okay, so they were gonna come in and repave the road. So we met with them out there, what they're gonna do for us, since we have a grant for North Landing, and we can only use it for North Landing. We spoke with them and they're gonna pave South Landing for us, curb to curb,
Oh, nice.
as a trade.
Yeah, because
So,
they did.
Yeah,
did
so
that,
we
and
pick
that was
up,
repaid,
yeah.
not that.
yeah, so we pick up, we pick up the road,
Well done.
so that'll be good.
Yeah.
Elizabethtown Gas, as I just mentioned, they're in town, actually doing a lot of work, 17 borough streets are impacted.
Yeah, Model Avenue is busy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say, my street starts tomorrow.
yeah, so they're making good progress. The schedule is on the website.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's also some contact information there, both for Elizabethtown and of course to contact us. I guess I'll leave it there. I think that covers the bigger items.
And we caught up on the markouts for all the
Yes,
work.
yes,
I know that
Dave
was
and
really
and
rough.
Public Works has been out there and we've had a lot of leaking meters in the system, so Dave gets pulled up for that,
Right,
meters in the homes.
right.
So Dave's been getting called out for that, and then also there's a lot of, because of the age of the roads and the infrastructure that's underneath it, it's clay pipes and everything, so you don't pick them up and they're abandoned. You don't pick them up when,
Right.
you're doing your markouts. But when the contractor hits them, they call us to come out and take a look to verify that it's not active and everything, so. Dave sometimes is running out there 2-3 times a day just to verify that you can backfill it, so that's been. So that's been a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, well, that's important. I mean, if it's a stormwater line or something. we have-
Yeah, we gotta fix it,
Fill it
yeah,
in, so, yeah.
yeah, so, but we've been good, we haven't hit any water lines, water mains, everything's been good so far, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, it's been good, so.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
That'll reopen the meeting, for our second, public comment section. If you're interested in a question or comment, please feel in person, come up to the front, to the lectern. If you're on the online via Zoom, push the raise hand button. We'll, recognize you and bring you over as a panelist so we can see you in the room. I'm seeing none online. I'm seeing no one in person. So I'll take a motion.
The second public meeting section.
I'll second.
It was me, I was first.
Yes, she was.
Thank you. With that, I'll happily take a motion to adjourn. Again, noting that our next meeting is May 1st, the meeting that was scheduled for next. Hold on, the meeting that was scheduled for the 10th next week is being canceled. So we had a motion that was second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mayor.